The workplace seems like an environment where we can develop personal relationships, and there are also rules in place so that employees are protected and feel they get their portion of psychological safety. Nevertheless, there is a taboo that at one moment of our lives, we wanted to share with others, but we couldn't. And this is the systemic feeling of fear at work. If you're wondering about the size of the problem, let me tell you something. There was a 2023 survey made by Life Career where they found that 86% of respondents experience work-related fears. We can name a couple of them. So making mistakes, getting fired, public speaking, being disliked by colleagues and your boss, making decisions. So the size of the problem is quite important. Today, I wanted to discuss with my guest today, Alei Hassanein, who is the author of the book, The Tyranny of the Hibiscus, a novel about how fear is impacting the decisions of employees today and what could be the alternatives to rebuild organizations' mindset. By the way, a little bit more about Alei. Alei is one of the most recognized transformation pundits, and he has led around 100 multi-million strategic transformation projects across 20 countries with a focus on life science, industrial, financial, and humanitarian sectors. He is also the founder of a company called Obicio. Alei, I'm so glad to have you today. And the reason why is that I went through your book. One, I got impressed about the book because it was quite relatable to situations that we have in a day-to-day basis in the workplace and also in our personal relationships. But one of the questions that I wanted to start with, Alei, is what is the meaning of the tyranny of the hibiscus? The title was quite intriguing. Tell me more about that.
Okay, thank you, Ivan, for having me. I'm very glad to be here. Yes, the tyranny of the hibiscus. There's a contradiction basically in the title because tyranny, it gives the impression that it's something negative, and hibiscus in some mythologies is about love, is about how you do good, etc. So basically, what I'm trying to express is sometimes you're trying to do good. However, the result is actually is quite negative.
Alei, hibiscus, is it a tree or is it a fruit? That's something that I cannot remember because I remember a juice of hibiscus.
It is a juice. I mean, okay, in Egypt, it is very, very well known. You dry leaves and actually people drink it. And actually, I think it also has a symbol of love, basically. And that's something that I found out about when I was writing the book.
Quite relatable to our topic, indeed. I want to get back to these numbers. So 86% of people who feel work-related fears is quite a lot, and almost no one talks about it. And even, well, because of you, I went into search of similar topics in books about fear at work, and it is quite limited, even though most of us have felt this fear at work. According to you, what are the most common types of fears you have seen and observed in the workplace today? By the way, if I remember correctly, you have interviewed like a couple of hundred people for making your book. Tell me more about these experiences.
Yes. Well, yes, fear is actually something that everyone experiences, but it's, as you say, that's a little bit taboo. People, don't like to talk about it because, of course, I mean, it shows like some vulnerability, some weaknesses, etc. So people tend, I mean, at least that was my first assumption. I thought that people would not be willing to talk about it. And when I tried to interview, I mean, when I interviewed I think it was more than 100 business leaders to understand what is fear for them, how does it affect them, what kind of impact does it have on them, on their teams, how do they handle it, what are the let's say the lessons learned that they have, like with the now looking back at the history, I was positively surprised to see that people were really very open to talk about it. Of course, for me, it was very important to guarantee confidentiality about like the testimonies of the people I talked to. And I think also that was one of the reasons, like they felt there's something that we need to tackle. There's something that we need to discuss. And honestly, I had like a great insights from them. But coming back to your question of what kind of fears we have, I think that's a quite tough question because it's difficult to give a list. However, I think the like when we're talking about like work environment, of course there is we need to deliver. Basically, we need to deliver. We need to deliver results. Basically, so I think one type of fear, one classical type of fear, is basically the fear of failing. The fear of failing, like not being able to deliver, and and that's actually a fear that kind of like hinders you from basically taking risks. So so it has a direct implication or direct impact on the performance of the organization. I think there's also like the let's say the more related relationship type of fears, like for example, like conflicts or like retaliation, for example, or like rejection. How to get accepted, etc. Those fears are also very important because sometimes they prevent you from speaking up in meetings, sharing ideas, discussing like important issues. So so those fears, like we have all experienced that, and I think the very typical fear as well that we see in the organizations is the fear of change. Basically, when there's a need for change because of performance, new technology, a new market, you name it, there are so many reasons why organizations need to change. And basically, when people feel that maybe it will affect their roles, responsibilities, and maybe affect the security of their job. So again, not willing to give you like an exhaustive list of fears, but I think those are quite recurrent.
Alei, you mentioned retaliation, and then the thought came to me. So, are organizations, the culture of an organization, can it exacerbate the fears that we have already, the intrinsic fears that we have already as human beings?
Yes, I think so. For example, what happens when you face like an unethical behavior? It could be from one colleague, from your boss. So what do you do about it? Okay. So so it's many organizations will tell you, okay, we have a code of conduct. We fight this. It's very important, etc., etc. But what happens in your brain the minute that happens to you, and you're thinking, okay, what should I do about it? Okay, do you want to take the risk and put like in balance all your career, everything you're trying to build, or actually, okay, like you just accept to go with it, and hopefully, everything will pass.
So it's almost like it is not enough for organizations to have, as you mentioned, code of conduct or certain rules. If the non-visible rules is protect each other and survival, basically, and they cannot act because they know that these non-spoken rules count even more than whatever they have put in the website of the company, then people feel like I cannot do this this step. Now the problem is, it becoming worse than before? This feeling of fear, is it spreading? If you compare it versus 10 years ago, is it becoming worse today, despite that everybody talks about healthy work culture, thriving work culture, investing in work culture and toxic work cultures? Everybody's bitching about it, but I don't know. And this number of 87% that I mentioned at the beginning of people feeling fear at work doesn't convince me that we are moving the needle on that side. Is it becoming worse or not?
Well, I would tend to say, I don't have numbers, but I would tend to say that yes, it does. If you look actually at the, one way to look at this is actually when you look at the pestle indicators, like, like political, economic, social, technology, indicators. I mean, I tend to think that all of those are in the red zone. At least they have been recently in the red zones. We had like the pandemics. When was it? In 2020, 2022, something like that. I think, I mean, still around somehow. We have like armed conflicts, and they're becoming, you know, like, okay, like maybe more. I mean, they last even more than they used to. We have, you know, we have inflation, etc. I mean, I think and also one important thing is also technology. Technology is also, I mean, playing a big role. I mean, technology, I mean, we are bombarded with information, and that creates, you know, some kind of feeling of fear, of anxiety. But also, I think when we want to relate that to the workspace, topics such as artificial intelligence, okay, how will they affect your job security? I mean, all of those things, you know, like, okay, I think we hear about them more and more. We have been hearing about them more and more in the past 10 years. So that's why I would tend to think that, yes, fears, that means the feeling of, or actually the perception of fear has increased. And especially, I think maybe after the pandemics, people have become a little bit more sensitive, even more sensitive than they used to be, about those kind of macroeconomic and, you know, like pestle indicators.
It's almost like the context and our capacity to manage information are the triggers for being that the situation has become worse. Maybe the workplace hasn't become worse, but because of the context that we live in, everything that we hear in the news, the accessibility of information, or the accessibility to bias information sometimes, because we always tend to listen to something that is relatable to us and that will make exaggerated something that will generate emotions. And the second part is the amount of information. I love this topic because what you mean with the use of technology is that it has make it worse in terms of our cognitive load, and that means that our capacity to process analytical and critical thinking has reduced, and we are more in autopilot mode, living out of our emotional side in our brain, which is, well, this is what we have become today. We have become more sensitive. Thus, the situation of fear has become worse. I love that, Alei. Today, I don't think that there is many companies who would dare to go and assess the level of fear in the organization. So in the pulse surveys that we usually do, there might be some contributors to fear, like the engagement that we have, if we feel like our bosses are responding positively to our feedback, but there is no index of how to measure fear in an organization, how to assess, in fact, the level of fear present on the current culture. Do you have any ideas from that side? Is it possible already to have this either index or assess correctly what is happening in organizations or even at the individual level?
Well, I think what organizations, when it comes to fear or, you know, like the culture globally or broadly speaking, one of the most common approaches is basically to make surveys, ask questions to the employees. Some people actually go the extra mile of, you know, like maybe assessing or analyzing the, you know, like getting some feedbacks when you have like, you know, like during the exit interviews, basically, when people are leaving the organization, what is the kind of turnover, reasons actually for turnover, you know, like how they felt basically about management and culture, those type of questions. So I mean, so those are let's say very valuable data that you can collect and analyze. I think there is also some models actually about basically assessing the behavior or actually the type of style of management or leadership of the senior leaders, to see, okay, I mean, what kind of, like accessibility or openness, etc., trust, I mean, that, that they instill actually within the organization. I think that those are very valuable. But again, I mean, okay, this is like it's, some people will say it's more like an art than a science. So basically, it's more difficult to kind of, like to mathematically, model every I mean, the level of fear, or actually define an index of fear. I think all the attempts to do that is really, I mean, are really geared towards showing that there's a very important subject that needs to be tackled. I mean, so it's, I mean, okay, so basically, and to show progress, this is where we are today. And with those, I mean, by using, I mean, by doing those initiatives, this is the type of progress that we have been able to accomplish. So that would be, I would say, at the organizational level, but also at the individual level, it's also important to kind of assess what is your, like what are the kind of emotional signals, for example, that fear, can trigger in you. What you can do about it. I think, I mean, some people, like more and more, I hear people saying that, okay, what is the purpose of all of this? I mean, do I really feel like aligned with the purpose of the organization? Does the organization really have a purpose? And okay, and how do I fit in it? So, I mean, so those questions are very important, because of course, by understanding this, it will also help you understand your engagement, your motivation, why, like, okay, in that project you're not so motivated, why actually, I mean, you don't like it when, to work actually within one certain type of setup, etc., etc. I think also when you want to have like an objective analysis about how you experience fear, it's also interesting to ask your peers, like, okay, I mean, what is how would you assess my level, for example, of communication? Like, okay, for example, during that project, I mean, I found it difficult to do this and that, because maybe I was feeling, that okay, the level of trust that I needed, like the psychological safety that I needed to be able to deliver on my messages, on my needs, I mean, we're not there.
One takeaway of what you say, Alei, is that it doesn't really matter how you measure fear, but if you have any type of assessment, as long as you have progress, that is what counts. So there is no magic methodology. Now, of course, today, because you and me, we are kind of geeks, so we know that the impact of artificial intelligence, in order to understand discussions and have patterns and classify what we say in a conversation, can be super duper useful, because I think that we gather more out of discussions rather than the survey, because the surveys cannot map all the individuality of reactions or triggers in the workplace of fears. But a conversation that is tagged correctly can give us enough substance on that. You mentioned another thing, Alei, that made me, I mean, it reminded me of my days in the corporate world about exit interviews. Fear is also what makes that some companies will take away some of the data points that are not matching the image of the organization that they want for. Like, I have seen that certain people having exit interviews, and certain people that were considered like mistakes and they left the company didn't have this exit interview. And again, the influence of fear in our actions in order to justify, how can it be that this amazing guy left our company in a bitter way? We don't want to know that, because then it means that somebody is guilty. Somebody needs to be punished. We don't want this person to be punished. Remove the data. That's something that has happened very often. Alei, so I had a good time reading your novel, The Tyranny of Hibiscus. And what I wanted to ask you as the author is, because I wanted to understand through the stories that you describe in the book, there is an interlink between personal and professional life. So people who are at work and people who are either expressing their fears in their personal life. It's almost like one is a reflection from the other. It's like one is feeding the fear. That side of work is feeding the fear at the personal life, and vice versa. What would you say is that the initial point of fear? Is it the society, the family, or and in family I include also friends or relationships, or is it work? Where does it all start, and what is the mechanics that is happening for an individual?
Well, even those are very, very complex questions, I would say.
You love complex questions. That I know.
Absolutely correct. I think it's I haven't really thought about the origin. I think it's probably a mix of all of this. I mean, obviously your culture, your upbringing, I mean, obviously plays a big role actually on how you create your emotional triggers. So it's it could be like a mix of many things. But you're right to say that for me, what I try to show, actually, let's say my assumption, which by the way I really believe in it, is that there's no such difference basically when you're, for example, okay, facing like a situation of fear in the organization or outside of the organization. So basically, by kind of erasing the border, actually the frontier between those two universes, I think it also opens opportunities for us to exploit, things that are working, for example, in the organizations, and use them outside and vice versa. So basically, it's like, okay, a human person, a human being, facing situations of fear. Okay, basically in the book, in the Tyranny of the Hibiscus, basically I'm depicting, let's say, 4 situations of fear. One is professional. One is, let's say, personal. It's between one man and his wife. And one is also personal. It's between one man and his son. And the last situation is a citizen, like VS in a way, the state. So basically, okay, all the kind of institutional situations of fear that, like a state can impose on you. So basically, those when you look at those kind of 4 stories, they seem very, very separated. I mean, okay, they don't have much to do with each other. But what I try to demonstrate in the book, that those 4 situations of fear are actually quite similar. And basically, what I try to see is, okay, what is, okay, as you mentioned, I like mathematics. I tried, I did something a little bit, okay, to please myself in a way, that was to try to define an equation of fear. Again, okay, that's, it doesn't maybe have all the rigor of the academics, etc. But for me, it was more to kind of like to send a message more of a negative. Basically, what I found out is fear is basically, or actually is a way to express it, is really like the difference, let's say, between your need for recognition and your intrinsic values. I think the screen has frozen, Ivan, or can you still hear me?
I can still see you.
Hello?
Don't worry.
Okay, good. So basically, so you have like this distance between your need for recognition and basically your intrinsic values. I mean, for me, what I wanted really, or actually what I was interested to see is there's like fear has like, okay, like a kind of external dimension. Okay, maybe for example, okay, you need to be recognized, you need like to prove yourself, you need to show some kind of image, let's say. And also, I mean, okay, how much this image is basically, like distant from your own values. So now, I mean, we're talking about purpose, and this is also very important. By the way, I'm not talking about like a fear that that you will be facing, for example, if you fall in the whatever in the Pacific Sea and you meet a shark. I'm not talking about that type of fear because because that type of fear is like, okay, I mean, you don't really consider in the intrinsic values in that moment, I would say. But I'm talking really about if you just like summarize it with like your need for recognition and your intrinsic values. So I mean, so it doesn't matter in what context it is. It could be like family context. It could be business context. I mean, you will always be feeling or actually sensing some kind of fear.
It's almost like when you were talking about this equation, it also almost made me think about like a proportionality with the risk of either losing your capacity to be recognized or a risk of giving away some of your values, losing some of your values. So risk of losing something that belongs to your personality, your individuality, what defines you. I find it quite amazing that it is still possible to have like to quantify in kind of mathematical terms the level of fear.
But
yes, sorry.
So sorry, but I mean, I think that's extremely important because even beyond actually quantifying, I think, I mean, it's really it raises a question of the purpose basically, because when you are, I mean, again, it's not a question about like saying that, okay, I'm a 3 kilometer away from the purpose of an organization or what is expected from me, or 3.5 kilometers. It's more about like, okay, I mean, okay, am I okay with this distance? Yes or no? And that also kind of it encourages you to kind of go and seek your own purpose, and that's very important because basically, I mean, we can elaborate a lot about like, okay, when you have found your own purpose, I mean, how engaged you are, how motivated, how productive, etc., etc. I think everyone understands this. So, but the question is, how do we do that? Is the culture talking about the workplaces, is the culture in place helping you identify your own purpose and giving you enough, providing you with enough trust that you can say, okay, maybe I don't feel comfortable, with this. Is there something I can change? Or maybe actually I need to change the setup. Maybe I don't belong here. So, I mean, those are very important questions.
So what you're saying is that corporations need to help individuals, their employees, to develop self-awareness, to know themselves. And then if I go to the level down, so we can say that self-awareness comes from the clarity of the values of the company. And by clarity, it means not only what is written in a piece of paper, but how they are expressing it, and how can I have the time in this crazy world where I have a full amount of work to make the time to understand myself, to understand what I really want. And both roles of self-awareness needs to be helped by the organizations through training, through coaches, or through an organization where we have the possibility also to explore things that we don't know. Potentially, I could be an astronaut. I don't know yet. I haven't tried it yet. So that organization can help people in the dimension of what is possible to explore, so that they can get to know a little bit themselves a little bit better. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. I think, I mean, it's really about, it's really a question of being true to yourself and to the people you're working with. You mentioned earlier, like a corporation that, kind of discarded all the kind of, like people, like leaving because maybe of reason that they don't like to consider, because it's actually, the problem is actually with them. There's something wrong with them. It's never something wrong with the organization. And I think, okay, this is a kind of confirmation bias. I mean, that the organization, like wants to put in place, okay, what we're doing is great. I mean, just refer to our website. Okay, we have like this integrity and like trust, etc., values. So I mean, so we cannot be doing anything wrong. And of course, I mean, that's sending a very, very negative message, I would say, within the at the people in the organization, because they know better. They know actually, I mean, what they experience every day. So I don't think that that's a long-term type of approach actually for like a sustainable performance even for the organization. Not to mention that it has a very negative impact on the employees and their productivity and engagement.
Alei, you kind of already started answering my next question, which is, what can the organization practically do in order to help to get rid of the systemic fear that can be inherited from generations of leaders who have been shitty at what they do or behaving in a bad way with employees, and that has replicated because we have a tendency to mime behaviors that are helping us in our survival. So if I see my boss behaving in one way, I have to mime it so that I can survive better, despite of whatever is written around the organization or being said. So what practically can organizations do in order to get rid of this systemic level of systemic enhancers of fear? Or is there something else than just helping self-awareness that we have mentioned in the previous question?
I think that's a very important point. Basically, what I'm trying to, I'm trying to evangelize, if you like, in a way, for organizations to integrate kindness in their practice and in their culture. So I mean, so kindness is like it's a word which sounds a little bit like a little bit naive, and everyone would agree, oh, kindness, yeah, of course we need more kindness. But what does it really mean? I think when you're talking about kindness, is really like accepting the vulnerability of other people. And I think that's really important, because when you do that, I mean, that's, just imagine that, okay, that you accept the vulnerability of other people. Just imagine how confident people will be to express themselves, to speak up in meetings, to get engaged, to say, you know what, okay, I don't like that, but okay, but let me tell you why, and let's be constructive. It's very powerful. It's a very powerful concept, I would say, and it's very simple, and everyone recognizes itself. And by the way, that's I've been like reading a lot actually about this concept, and I was again I was blown up to see that there is a lot of books being published, like very recently, that actually, like praise for kindness in organizations. In the beginning, I was thinking, okay, come on, but okay, yeah, right, yeah, come on, like kindness. Of course, we need, we need love, and like what's next? but actually, it is. I mean, some very serious studies. For example, I had this study. Again, I don't remember the exact, the exact metrics about how they did it, but it was very interesting to see that. They compared basically, it's statistics, I mean, it's average, but they compared basically, let's say, a kind behavior versus a non-kind behavior. So I mean, it's okay, not, I think let's try to see what kind of general and high-level takeaways we can get from this, not entering about what does it mean to be kind, not to be kind, etc. But I mean, just to give like a kind of informal discussion, just the one that we're having now. Basically, that they were able to quantify that a person being kind versus a person not being kind had a difference of, if I could recall it correctly, I think it was a difference in terms of income that was less than $10,000 per year. So you may argue, oh, that's okay, that's still money, that's good money. I mean, it's not that much, but it's not it's not little. So it seems actually that it tends to prove that it's better not to be kind, because then you can make in average about $10,000 more per year. The question is, what is your scope of measurement? Because if you just look at the salary that you're getting, so yes, maybe it's better not to be kind. And by the way, I mean, how many times, Ivan, have you heard in your, when you were working in the corporations that, like this person, now he's a CEO, he's a CXO, but he didn't reach that level by being kind. How many times have you heard this? For me, I have heard it like, I don't know how many times per day. So actually, we tend to think that by not being kind, it's actually a way to succeed in the corporate world. However, the problem is what happens, for example, to your personal life, because what you learn, I mean, the way you are at your at the professional level, will have an impact. Will kind of transform you to become a little bit more unkind outside of the organization as well. So basically, again, I don't want to make caricatures, but or stereotypes, but maybe you will be you will have higher chance, for example, I don't know, to have personal issues, whatever, with your wife, maybe get a divorce, maybe get be a little bit lose friends, not have the perfect treatment with your neighbors, whatever. So I mean, so all of this can have a direct impact, for example, on your health, and then also on the money that you will spend trying to cure from that. So your net at the end of the day is definitely negative when you are kind, when you're unkind versus being kind. So I mean, all of this is very important. And again, I mean, it's thank you for allowing me to provide this opportunity to discuss about this kindness that is not like a kind of naive type of concept, but I think it has really real impact on the business. But coming back to your question, Ivan, I mean, when we're talking about some kind of strategies that maybe we can do, maybe not to get rid of fear, because I'm not sure we can do that, but at least reduce a little bit fear, or increase kindness in a way. For example, I had this conversation with a friend lately who was working at the World Health Organization, and I think the current director general, when he joined, was a couple of years ago, maybe 6, 7, whatever years ago. He started by saying, okay, what we do is actually our mission is basically to provide health for all. I think it was health for all by all, something like that. Very strong message. And he asked the question, I think it was to every employee in the organization, what does that mean to you? And I think that was already an act of kindness, because it was valuing the perception of people and giving them a chance to say, okay, this is how I understand it. And of course, it's very strong, because once then you start, the mathematical part of analyzing, but most people think that, or actually maybe there's something that will emerge, maybe a pattern I didn't think about. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's actually mobilizing people. Oh, incredible. I mean, what can we do about it? Or if our people believe that, and it's not maybe what we want people to believe, or actually what we want people to understand or to believe. So what is the message that we're sending outside? It's very powerful. It's very important. So yeah, I mean, this is that could be one step basically to kind of or one strategy or one approach, let's say, to instill kindness, or in order to reduce fear within the organization.
Actually, now I get it better, Alei. And the thing is that through this discussion, you made me think about certain studies that have been made based on psychology and neuroscience. One of them is quite, in fact, it's not really a study. It is a research done by a guy called Csikszentmihalyi, a Hungarian-American teacher in psychology who wrote a book called Flow, and he defines as the as a level of satisfaction that we can get in life through three different dimensions. One is having like meaning of what we do. The other one is having the freedom of deciding how you want to do certain things, either at work or in our life. And then the fact of being accountable, autonomous on your life. And these three things unleash, in fact, the power of feeling fulfilling your life. Now, when you were explaining the aspect of kindness, I thought that, listen, these two things are almost similar. So kindness is equalizing to a level of, or the result or the outcome is equalizing to the outcomes of feeling in the flow, feeling satisfied about what you do. The other thing that you made me think is about in the last 15 years, the developments with technology like MRI in order to understand how the brain processes like good actions. Because when you were defining kindness, I was going into the direction of what the latest research on neuroscience to understand, for instance, how monks live, what happens in their brains, how satisfied or fulfilled are the life, the level of happiness. And the brain of a monk who has been practicing certain mindfulness practices towards kindness is very different to the standard overstressed employee. So what is happening is that the acts of kindness, or which goes towards your perception of the external world, rewire your brain so that you have better connections. That means that you can be more innovative, you can feel more satisfied, and that you can see it in an MRI. So you can see what are the connections between somebody who is living in a world of toxic culture versus a monk, or simply someone who has started the practice of mindfulness through with the purpose of kindness. Even someone who has started a couple of days, you can already start rewiring your brain to have a perception of the world that will instill your need of provide this kindness to others, because it starts on how you see the world. If I see you as a threat, then I cannot give you anything, Alei. But if my perception of the world changes and I can see you as somebody who has the same needs as me, I don't know, love, recognition, whatever it is, then my vision of you have changed, and then I can give you my gift of kindness. So there is a high correlation with the latest practices of mindfulness and the impact that it can have on our way to provide kindness. And let me tell you more, there is even organizations who have implemented mindfulness trainings across, like it's the basics. Like there is Google, who has implemented a training called Search Inside Yourself, which is basically the practice of mindfulness. So all of the geeks, the tech people, have to go through this training as within the 2 years that they are part of Google, because they can see that has an influence in the outcomes, on the level of collaboration, in how you rewire your brain to be more productive and be more happy. And this happiness can drive also to wealth. Why not?
Yes,
I went too far, Alei.
I'm sorry?
I went too far in that discussion because
No, I think it's really fascinating. I mean, I'm very happy to hear about those studies. I think, you know, personally, I'm a very practical person. So I mean, so for me, it's very important that, okay, when we talk about kindness, it's to kind of I think we both agree actually on the positive impact of having kindness. I would actually challenge people to say that, okay, you know, by having kindness actually within, for example, the relationship between people or within our organization, that will be like, okay, a very bad thing to do. Even, you know, if you're working in a kind of culture where actually performance is very important. And by the way, performance talking about performance, because some people may also think that, like, okay, for example, if you're working in an investment bank or whatever, okay, kindness doesn't really have its place. I think it's all a question of what is the expected basically return or actual performance that you want, and what is actually the term, what is the time that timeline that you want to set. Because of course, if you're very short termist, I would say, so yes, okay, you can just focus on anything but kindness, just okay, deliver, just okay, maybe be like aggressive in your behavior, etc. I remember actually this client that was very proud to tell me, like that was many years ago, that actually he used to work for a huge corporation. And whenever they were having a meeting, they had like a C-level person actually attending the meeting, and he used to say to ask people, okay, you here, I don't see what kind of value you're adding to this meeting, so please get out. That kind of of behavior. Again, it's like, okay, maybe he's right. Maybe during that meeting, okay, this person, didn't actually, like prepare. Maybe he didn't actually reach his objectives or whatever. But just imagine, okay, what is the impact that this person, is having? I mean, what the impact of actually his comments on this person after the person leaves, in terms of, okay, risk taking, speaking up in meetings, sharing like ideas, innovating, like it's like a total disaster. It's a total disaster. But again, if you're just concerned about very short-term performance, okay, maybe that's a good thing to do. Again, I'm being very provocative, but I think it's really about like having a kind of long-term vision. That's number one. Number two, I think also in terms of kindness, I don't, I want actually to take my distance from being naive. So basically, the way actually, and we had this conversation with other people, who, for example, one person who wrote a lot about kindness. I called this person, and we had like a very interesting discussion. That for him, kindness is, it's more like, okay, believing that people have this kind of, good. Good emotions and good values, within themselves. It's a very Rousseau type of vision, which I totally respect. But the way I like to think at kindness, and I think it's more applicable to let's say to corporations or to organizations, it's actually a mix of, I would say, of empathy and utility. It's very important, okay, to have some kind of, okay, it has to be, you have to have an objective. You have to reach an objective. You're being kind because of an objective. It's not about manipulation, but it's actually, it could be just helping someone, okay, someone succeed. That's an objective. So it's not about like manipulating people through, by kind of lying to them that the organization is kind, has a kind culture, but what you are really after is to kind of, exploit them to the maximum and to get you to just focus on performance. No, I think it's actually, it's really, you are being kind, but at the same time, you don't lose from your sight the concept of bringing or actually creating an impact. And actually, this impact is financial performance. It's also impacting positively all your ecosystem. Could be your suppliers, could be your clients, could be your planet. And I think that's also a very important consideration, because by integrating this impact in your radar, and that's very important, by integrating this impact in your radar, you are not only like, okay, like just, like giving. You are giving, yes, you are giving, but by giving, you're also getting. Because when you give to the planet, or actually to your ecosystem, to your people, basically, you are also creating new business opportunities, and that's extremely important. It's not only about like, okay, let's just help the planet, and you know that what I think about that. It's I think it's a very noble cause per se, but it's not only about saving the planet. It's actually by saving the planet, you're actually also increasing your business opportunities, and that's what people need to understand. The last point that I wanted to mention also about kindness um, is, you know, I asked myself this question. I said, okay, so we have all those, you know, like those discussion. I mean, what you asked me about, like, okay, all those fears, maybe legitimate fears. What can we do about it? Okay, kindness. Okay, seems a little bit like, okay, very broad and what, you know, like hard to kind of to grasp. Okay, what is really kindness? How do we really use it, etc. And I was wondering what else actually in the world is providing us kindness. You know, like, okay, we have, of course, you know, like we talked about culture, we talked about upbringing, we talked about you know, like family, etc., etc. But I think that society, in a way, and again, I like to be a little bit provocative because I like actually to challenge ideas, but I think society has failed us in one way, very important way. If you look at society, if you consider that society has two main objectives, one is to create social links, and the second is to create well-being to its components, basically to the citizens. I'm not sure that, okay, that today we can argue that society has succeeded in those two objectives. So I started thinking, okay, so what else can we do? What are our alternatives? So what in the world could basically organize, let's say, collective efforts to create value and wealth, and that can do that at scale? And I don't know, I mean, what you would think, but I mean, for me, I mean, almost immediately I thought about organizations. That's exactly what they're designed for. So it's really like imagining having like a cookie manufacturer. You know, you put like, okay, it's, you know, at the entrance as an input, you put like flour, you put water, eggs, milk, sugar, whatever, and something happens, and then you get like nice cookies, warm, sweet cookies at the end that you can, you know, deploy at the scale that you like. So I'm thinking, okay, what if instead of putting like flour and milk and eggs, you inject kindness? Can the organization actually play that role and basically spread this kindness within the, you know, within the world? And again, by talking about kindness, it's not only like, okay, it's of course very related to the human relationships, but it has also this impact component that affects your ecosystem broadly at large. So that's actually the kind of things that I'm discussing a little bit in the tyranny of the hibiscus, and that's also what we try to do at Obicio Consulting.
What is interesting is that so it's almost like my takeaway about this is that kindness is not about being nice. Kindness is about the reason why you do certain things. This is the most important. So there is different ways to express it. You can be a tough cookie as a boss. Doesn't sound that nice, but if the reason why I'm giving feedback, maybe encouraging someone is because I want him to do good. I want that employee to do good. That's what counts. So kindness has nothing to do with niceness. The other thing that stays out of this discussion is that you mentioned that society has failed us. And it is true, but society is made by individuals. Individuals that today are much more driven by greed, wanting more of wealth, wanting more power. And you're right, if that could be replaced by this kindness, purpose-driven giving, uh, giving of themselves, having a perception of the environment that is different than today, the more positive way, the world will become a better place. The individual will find more satisfaction about his life, and the individual will be more happy or happier. There is no correlation, and there has been even studies about that in psychology, no correlation between wealth and happiness. After a given point, after a breaking point, it's plateauing. So after a certain amount of money, you don't become happier. So survival mode from $0 to, in the US, in the study that was done 20 years ago, it was $78,000. Direct correlation between happiness and money. After the $78,000, you are plateauing. So it is about how you use whatever wealth that will continue making that your happiness will increase. So if you start viewing the world with kindness, you can make the use of that money or that value that has been created and convert it into your personal happiness, fulfillment in your life, purpose in your life. Love that,
But
Alei.
thank you for this great example, Ivan, because I mean, coming back to what I've said, the study, like that made like a difference between being kind and unkind. If it's, like again, everything being equal, if we're talking about like an average of 10,000 or less than $10,000 per year. So basically that actually, that emphasizes basically your message. It's like, okay, at one point of time, there's no point pursuing unkindness in a way. It doesn't make any sense. Number one, you're being net negative at the end of the day. That's number one. Number two, anyways, okay, you will reach a plateau. And again, like, okay, when we talk about kindness, it's also a way maybe to fight one of the biggest fights, like, okay, humans are fighting basically, which is basically ego. Okay, everyone says that, okay, ego is like it's like the devil of the in the human relationships. But yes, it's like let's imagine, like, okay, what happens, for example, in a meeting, or what happens within the organization when like, okay, again, you feel that you're not entitled basically to speak up. You're not, like, okay, whatever you have to say, okay, you will feel ridiculous. You will be criticized. And or maybe if what you say is smart, it could actually threaten other people. That then it becomes a problem actually of survival. Or actually you don't get like all the necessary information. You're not being consulted, like, for example, what they did at the WHO, because people are in a way trying to protect you, like, okay, from some kind of, like, okay, this is extra stress. So, okay, no, let me, as a manager, as a leader, manage all those questions, like strategic questions. And I think people will be surprised if actually, they made this change and actually tried to kind of, like, maybe through kindness, but again, kindness with the search of creating an impact. So I think they will be amazed about the results that they will see.
Alei, I want to already thank you for this conversation, because it combines a little bit of science, research, and really the thing that can trigger a major change in how cultures at work are performing. So it could be disruptive if there was a focus on this idea that kindness as a way of living can change drastically the workplace, and this can have an influence into our personal lives and into our society. And it makes sense, if we are spending more 70% of our awake time in the workplace, so why don't we start there? There is the muscles there, right?
Absolutely. So so it's a good opportunity. Let's see the organizations as center of excellence, or training center basically for kindness. And okay, and those people, actually, those individuals working in the organization, they're also husbands, spouses. They're, like, okay, like sport coaches. They work, like, okay, maybe they belong to a political party, etc., etc. Okay, so there's a way actually, to kind of spread this. And again, not being like idealistic or utopistic. I'm just saying that, again, let's go back to to this kind of cookie manufacturer. I think, okay, maybe we can create like kind cookies, or actually, or candies in a way, out of this new organization.
Indeed. Alei, thank you very much for making the time to participate to this episode of the Growth Hacking Culture podcast. So this episode today was about unveiling fear and cultivating kindness in business with Alei Hassanein. Alei Hassanein is the author of The Tyranny of the Hibiscus. The French version is out there. I'm going to put the link just below this episode so that you can go and have a peek if you speak French. English version soon or not, Alei?
Well, hopefully, I mean, I hope so, but okay, but I was really happy to, I mean, it was like quite a lot of work. So yes, I mean, definitely, I plan to do that as well.
And another thing that I plan to do is put if people want to reach you, so your LinkedIn profile, so that people can ask you any questions and reach you out. And probably it makes sense also to reach you out through the website of your company, Obicio. I will put it down in the comments. Alei, thank you very much. Any last comments before we move on and we say goodbye, my friend?
Thank you so much, I mean, for having me. I thought this discussion was really great. We had a lot of things that also I was also able to learn from you. I mean, from the statistics and more about the let's say the neuroscience side and behavior science side about this discussion. I think it's basically, I think kindness is not a very new concept, but I think it's very important, and there's a good way to exploit it to actually to boost financial performance and also psychological safety for the people within and outside of any organization.
Thank you, Alei. Have an excellent day.
Thank you, you too, Ivan.